When 17-year-old Kai Chen answered a phone call in Mandarin at his Seattle cafe job, he had no idea a mysterious billionaire was watching from the corner booth. The crying grandmother on the phone begged for help to save her dying grandson's life. She needed $200,000 for heart surgery, more money than Kai had ever seen. What happened next changed everything. The rich stranger walked over with an offer that seemed impossible. Within 24 hours, Kai was flying first class to China with a man who claimed to be helping a desperate family. But as they landed in Shanghai, shocking family secrets began to unfold. The phone call wasn't random. The billionaire wasn't a stranger. And the dying boy who needed help? He was connected to Kai in ways no one could have imagined. This is the true story of how one answered phone call turned a minimum-wage cafe worker into a multi-billionaire, exposed a deadly criminal organization, and revealed family connections that spanned continents and generations. But here's what will leave you speechless. Why had this mysterious billionaire been watching Kai for months? And what was the shocking truth about Kai's parents' death that changed everything? The answers will surprise you more than you can imagine. Let me take you back to where it all began, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon when Kai was just trying to finish his shift at Moonbeam Cafe. The coffee machine hissed like an angry cat as Kai Chen wiped down the last table at Moonbeam Cafe. His shoulders ached from the lunch rush. 50 customers in 2 hours. Each order meant 25 cents. In tips, if he was lucky. "Almost done, buddy," he whispered to the old coffee machine. It was older than him, but it still made good coffee. Just like Kai, young but hard-working. The cafe was quiet now. Only 3 customers left. An old lady reading a book, a college student typing on her laptop, and the man in the corner booth. Kai looked at the corner man again. He came here every day for 2 weeks. Always ordered black coffee and sat in the same spot. His suit looked expensive. His watch sparkled in the afternoon light. His shoes were so shiny, Kai could see his reflection in them. Rich people made Kai nervous. They looked at him like he was invisible. The man typed on his laptop, but kept glancing up. His eyes followed Kai around the cafe. When Kai cleaned tables, the man watched. When Kai helped customers, the man watched. When Kai counted tips, the man watched. "Weird," Kai muttered under his breath. The phone rang. Kai dried his hands on his apron and grabbed it. "Moonbeam Cafe. How can I help you?" he said in his cheerful work voice. Silence. Then, crying. A woman's voice spoke in rapid Mandarin. Kai's heart jumped. Nobody called the cafe speaking Chinese? "Please," the woman sobbed. "I know this number helped someone before. My neighbor Mrs. Wang gave it to me. She said you saved her family last year." Kai frowned. "Mrs. Wang?" He didn't know any Mrs. Wang. The cafe never helped families. They just sold coffee and sandwiches. "I'm sorry," Kai said gently in Mandarin. "I think you have the wrong number." "No, please don't hang up." The woman's voice cracked with desperation. "My grandson is dying. He needs heart surgery. The hospital wants $200,000 before they'll operate. I have nobody else to call." Kai's hands began to shake. $200,000. That was more money than his family had ever seen. "What's your grandson's name?" Kai asked softly. "Xiaoming. He's only 8 years old. Such a good boy. He loves to draw pictures and play soccer." The woman, "Mrs. Liu," cried harder. "The doctors say he has 2 weeks, maybe less." Kai closed his eyes. He saw his own grandmother's face. She raised him alone after his parents died. She worked 16 hours a day cleaning offices so he could eat. When he got sick, she sold her jewelry to pay the doctor. "Where are you calling from?" Kai asked. "Shanghai. I know it's far. I know you don't know us. But please, if there's any way—" Mrs. Liu's voice faded to whispers. Kai looked around the cafe. He made $8 an hour. After rent, food, and money for Grandma back in China, he had maybe $50 left each month. He couldn't help this woman. He was just a kid who served coffee. But he couldn't hang up either. "Tell me about Xiaoming," Kai said. For 10 minutes, Mrs. Liu described her grandson, how he helped her cook dinner, how he read books to other kids in the hospital, how he never complained, even when the medicine made him sick. "He drew me a picture yesterday," Mrs. Liu whispered. 2 people holding hands. He wrote, "Grandma and Ming forever," at the bottom. Tears rolled down Kai's cheeks. The college student looked up from her laptop. The old lady stopped reading. Even the rich man in the corner was staring. "Mrs. Liu," Kai said carefully, "I wish I could help. But I'm just a 17-year-old cafe worker. I don't have that kind of money." "I understand," she said quietly. "Thank you for listening. Most people hang up." Kai wanted to say more, wanted to promise everything would be okay. But promises needed money, and money was something he didn't have. "Wait," Kai said quickly. "Give me your phone number. Maybe I can think of something." Mrs. Liu gave him the number. Her voice held tiny hope, like a candle in the wind. "Xiaoming is lucky to have you," Kai said. "And I'm lucky someone answered who understands grandmother love." The line went quiet. Kai hung up the phone and stared at the number he'd written on a napkin. "Interesting conversation." Kai jumped. The rich man stood beside the counter, holding his empty coffee cup. Up close, his eyes looked kind but mysterious. "I couldn't help but overhear," the man said in perfect Mandarin. "You have a good heart." Kai's face turned red. "Sorry for taking so long." "The call was important," the man finished. He set a $20 bill on the counter for his $3 coffee. "Keep the change." As he walked toward the door, the man turned back. "What would you do if you could help that grandmother?" "Everything," Kai replied without thinking. "That could be my own grandmother calling." The man smiled and handed Kai a simple white business card. Only a phone number was printed on it. "Call me tonight," he said quietly. "I might have a solution." The door chimed as he left. Kai stared at the card, his heart pounding. What kind of solution could a stranger offer? And why did he care about a poor cafe worker's problems? Outside, the rich man climbed into a black car. Through the window, Kai saw him making a phone call. Looking back at the cafe, looking back at him, Kai stared at the business card until his hands stopped shaking. Just 10 numbers printed on thick, expensive paper. No name, no address, nothing else. Who was that guy? Zara asked, appearing beside him with a tray of dirty dishes. She was Kai's co-worker, and the only person at work who treated him like a friend instead of just the new kid. "I don't know," Kai admitted. He slipped the card into his apron pocket. "Some rich customer." "Rich customers don't usually care about our personal phone calls," Zara said, raising an eyebrow. "And they definitely don't tip $17 for black coffee." Kai looked at the $20 bill still sitting on the counter. $17 was more than he made in 2 hours of work. "Maybe he felt sorry for me," Kai shrugged. "Or maybe he's some kind of weirdo," Zara warned. "Rich people don't help random cafe workers, Kai. Trust me on this one." But Kai couldn't stop thinking about Mrs. Liu's crying voice. About 8-year-old Xiaoming drawing pictures in a hospital bed. about 2 weeks running out like sand in an hourglass. The rest of his shift dragged by slowly. Every few minutes, Kai touched the business card in his pocket. By closing time, he had memorized the phone number. "You're being weird today," Zara said as they cleaned up together. "Weirder than usual." "Thanks a lot," Kai laughed, but his heart wasn't in it. "Seriously though, be careful. Seattle has lots of crazy people with money." Kai rode 3 buses home, to his tiny apartment in the International District. He shared it with 2 other guys who worked night shifts, so the place was usually empty during the day. Perfect for thinking. He sat on his second-hand couch and stared at the business card. The rich man's words echoed in his head. "I might have a solution." What kind of solution? A loan? A job? Or was Zara right about rich people being crazy? Kai's phone buzzed. A text from his grandmother in Beijing. "Working extra hours this week. Rent is due soon. How are you, my precious boy?" Guilt twisted in Kai's stomach. Grandma was 72 years old and still cleaning office buildings at night. He sent her half his cafe money every month, but it wasn't enough. She was too proud to ask for more help. At 8 p.m., Kai couldn't wait anymore. He dialed the number. "Hello, Kai?" The rich man's voice was warm and calm. "How did you know it was me? I was hoping you'd call tonight." The man chuckled. "Did you think about our conversation?" "I can't stop thinking about it," Kai admitted. "But I still don't understand. Why do you care about helping Mrs. Liu? You don't even know her." "You're right. I don't know Mrs. Liu." The man paused. "But I know you." "What do you mean?" "I've been watching you for 3 months, Kai. Every day at the cafe. How you treat customers with respect, even when they're rude. How you always work extra shifts when someone calls in sick. How you share your lunch with the homeless woman who sits outside." Kai felt cold suddenly. "You've been watching me for 3 months? I needed to understand what kind of person you are. That's kind of creepy." The man laughed. "I suppose it is, but I had good reasons. Tell me, Kai, what do you want most in life?" Kai thought about his grandmother's tired face, about medical school applications he couldn't afford to send, about Mrs. Liu's grandson running out of time. "I want to help people," he said honestly. "I want to be a doctor someday. But mostly, I just want my family to be safe and happy." What if I told you that helping Mrs. Liu could help you achieve all those things? I'd say that sounds too good to be true. Maybe. Or maybe some things that seem impossible are just waiting for the right person to believe in them. Kai walked to his window. The city lights twinkled like stars below. Somewhere out there, Mrs. Liu was probably sitting beside her grandsons. Hospital bed, praying for a miracle? "What kind of help are you talking about?" Kai asked. "The kind that requires courage. Are you willing to trust a stranger?" "I don't even know your name. You can call me Mr. Harrison. And tomorrow, if you're brave enough, I'd like to take you to dinner." "Dinner?" "The Space Needle restaurant, 7 o'clock. We'll discuss how to save Xiaoming's life." Kai nearly dropped the phone. The Space Needle restaurant was one of the fanciest places in Seattle. A single meal there cost more than Kai made in a week. "I can't afford—" "You're my guest," Mr. Harrison interrupted. "Just bring yourself and an open mind." "Why are you doing this?" "Because 3 months ago, I decided I needed to find someone special. Someone with a good heart and strong character. Someone who would do the right thing even when it was difficult." Kai's head spun with questions. "And you think I'm that person?" "I watched you pay for an old man's coffee when you only had $5 in your wallet. I watched you give your sandwich to a hungry child when you hadn't eaten all day. I watched you work double shifts to help a coworker whose mother was sick. Kai remembered all those moments. They seemed like small things at the time. Those weren't big deals, Kai said. They were to me, and they will be to Mrs. Liu too. Mr. Harrison's voice became serious. Kai, tomorrow night, I'm going to offer you a chance to change everything. Not just for Xiaoming, but for yourself and your family. The question is, are you ready for your life to be completely different? Kai thought about his grandmother scrubbing floors, about Mrs. Liu's tears, about Xiaoming drawing pictures while his heart slowly failed. What do I need to bring? Just dress nicely. And Kai? Yeah? Bring your passport. The line went dead. Kai stared at his phone, heart pounding. His passport? Why would he need his passport for dinner? Outside his window, a plane flew overhead, its lights blinking against the dark sky. For a crazy moment, Kai wondered where it was going. Wondered if tomorrow night his life really would change forever. He pulled out the business card one more time. Still just 10 numbers on expensive paper. But now those numbers felt like a doorway to somewhere impossible. Kai borrowed his roommate's best shirt and took 3 buses to get to the Space Needle. His hands were sweaty as he walked into the fancy restaurant. The waiter looked at his cheap clothes and frowned. I'm meeting someone, Kai said quickly. Mr. Harrison? The waiter's attitude changed instantly. Right this way, sir. Mr. Harrison sat at a table by the window. The view of Seattle's lights was breathtaking, but Kai barely noticed. On the table next to Mr. Harrison's water glass was a plane ticket. Sit down, Kai, Mr. Harrison said with a smile. You look nervous. Should I be? Kai asked, staring at the ticket. That depends. How do you feel about flying? Kai's stomach dropped. I've never been on a plane. Well, there's a first time for everything. Mr. Harrison slid the ticket across the table. We leave for Shanghai in 6 hours. Kai picked up the ticket with shaking hands. First class, Seattle to Shanghai. Tomorrow's date. This is crazy, Kai whispered. I can't just fly to China. I have work. I have responsibilities. I already spoke to your manager at the cafe. You have 2 weeks off, with pay. You talked to my boss? Kai felt dizzy. How did you? I own the building where Moonbeam Cafe operates, Mr. Harrison said calmly. Your manager was happy to help when I explained the situation. Kai stared at him. You own the building? Among other things. Mr. Harrison opened his menu. Have you decided what you want to eat? I want answers, Kai said firmly. Who are you really? Why are you doing this? And why do we need to go to Shanghai? Mr. Harrison set down his menu and looked directly at Kai. Because that's where Xiaoming is dying, and that's where we're going to save his life. A waiter appeared, and Mr. Harrison ordered for both of them. Expensive food with names Kai couldn't pronounce. The kind of meal that cost more than Kai's monthly rent. I still don't understand, Kai said after the waiter left. Even if you have money to help, why take me along? You could just send the money directly. Because this isn't just about money, Kai. It's about understanding what really matters in life. Mr. Harrison pulled out his phone and showed Kai a photo. It was Kai at the cafe, giving his sandwich to a little girl while her mother wasn't looking. You took a picture of me? I take pictures of moments that matter. Moments that show someone's true character. He swiped to another photo. Kai helping an elderly customer carry heavy bags to her car. Another photo of Kai sharing his umbrella with a stranger in the rain. You've been following me, Kai said, feeling scared and confused. I've been watching you become the person the world needs more of, Mr. Harrison corrected. Someone who helps others, even when no one is watching, even when it costs them something. They can't afford to lose. The food arrived. It looked like art on expensive plates. Kai was too nervous to eat. "What happens when we get to Shanghai?" Kai asked. "We visit Xiaoming in the hospital. We meet his grandmother. And you'll understand why some phone calls are meant to be answered." Mr. Harrison ate calmly, while Kai's mind raced with questions. This felt like a dream, or maybe a nightmare. Rich strangers didn't fly poor teenagers to China to help sick children. "What if this is some kind of trick?" Kai asked. "What if it's not?" Mr. Harrison replied. "What if it's exactly what it appears to be? A chance to do something incredibly important?" Kai thought about Mrs. Liu's tears, about Xiaoming drawing pictures in his hospital bed, about 2 weeks that were now probably less than 10 days. "If we're really doing this, I need to call my grandmother first." "Of course." Mr. Harrison handed him a phone. "But Kai." "Yeah?" "Don't tell her everything yet. Some surprises are better shared in person." 2 hours later, they were at the airport. Kai had never seen anything like it. The international terminal was huge and full of people speaking different languages. Signs pointed to cities all over the world. Mr. Harrison handled everything: check-in, security, boarding passes. He moved through the airport like he owned it. 2. "First-class passengers may board now," a voice announced. Kai's legs felt like jelly as they walked down the tunnel to the plane. The first-class section looked like a fancy hotel. The seats were bigger than Kai's bed at home. "This is insane," Kai whispered. "This is just the beginning," Mr. Harrison said, settling into the seat beside him. A flight attendant brought them warm towels and offered champagne. Kai had never tasted alcohol, but he was too nervous to try it now. "Mr. Harrison," the flight attendant said with a bright smile, "so nice to see you again." "The usual?" "Please, Janet, and make sure my young friend here gets whatever he needs. This is his first flight." Janet looked at Kai with kind eyes. "How exciting! Don't worry, honey. We'll take good care of you." As the plane rolled away from the gate, Kai gripped his armrest. Through the small window, he watched Seattle get smaller and smaller until it disappeared into clouds. 14 hours to Shanghai. 14 hours to figure out if he was making the biggest mistake of his life or about to become part of a miracle. "Scared?" Mr. Harrison asked, noticing Kai's white knuckles. "Terrified," Kai admitted. "Good. The best adventures start with being scared." 3 hours into the flight, after the dinner service and movie selection, Mr. Harrison finally started talking about himself. "Tell me about your family, Kai," he said. So Kai did. He talked about his parents dying in a car accident when he was 12, about his grandmother raising him in a tiny apartment in Beijing, about working 3 jobs to save money for America, and medical school. "I send half my money to Grandma every month," Kai explained. "She's 72 and still working night shifts cleaning offices. I keep telling her to retire, but she says she needs to keep busy." Mr. Harrison listened carefully, sometimes asking questions, sometimes just nodding. He seemed genuinely interested in Kai's life. "What do you want to be when you finish school?" Mr. Harrison asked. "A doctor," Kai said without hesitation. "I want to help sick children like Xiaoming, but medical school costs so much money. Maybe in 10 years, I'll have enough saved. What if I told you that helping others could help you achieve your dreams too?" "I'd say that sounds like something from a movie." Mr. Harrison smiled mysteriously. Sometimes life is stranger than movies. As they flew over the Pacific Ocean, Kai stared out at the endless water below. Somewhere ahead was China. Somewhere ahead was a little boy who needed help. And somewhere in this airplane was a rich stranger who seemed to know more about Kai's life than Kai knew about his. "Mr. Harrison?" Kai said as the cabin lights dimmed for the overnight portion of the flight. "Yes?" "What? Aren't you telling me?" Mr. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to look directly at Kai. "Everything," he said softly. "But some truths are better discovered than explained." Kai closed his eyes and tried to sleep, but his mind wouldn't stop racing. In 12 hours, he would be in Shanghai. In 12 hours, his life might change forever. He just hoped he was ready for whatever truth was waiting for him. The plane landed in Shanghai at dawn. Kai's legs shook as they walked through the massive airport. Everything looked different but familiar at the same time. Signs in Chinese characters he could read, voices speaking his first language, the smell of street food mixing with airplane fuel. "Welcome home," Mr. Harrison said quietly. Home. Kai hadn't been back to China in 5 years. He left as a scared 12-year-old boy. Now he was returning as a confused 17-year-old with a mysterious billionaire and a mission to save a dying child. A black car waited outside the airport. The driver jumped out and opened their doors. "Boss," the driver said in Chinese, bowing slightly to Mr. Harrison. "Boss?" Kai stared at Mr. Harrison with new eyes. "You speak Chinese?" "I speak many languages," Mr. Harrison replied. "It's useful in business." They drove through Shanghai's busy streets. The city had changed so much since Kai was little. Tall buildings reached toward the sky. Luxury cars filled the roads. Digital billboards flashed advertisements for phones and clothes and dreams. But between the shiny new buildings, Kai could still see the old Shanghai. Narrow alleys where laundry hung from windows. Street vendors selling noodles from tiny carts. Elderly people practicing Tai Chi in small parks. "It's beautiful," Kai whispered. "It's home," Mr. Harrison said. "For both of us." The car stopped at Shanghai Children's Hospital. Kai's stomach twisted into knots as they walked through the front doors. The lobby was full of worried parents holding sick children. Some families slept on benches, too poor to afford hotels. This could have been him and his grandmother 5 years ago, if he had gotten really sick. "Room 304, Mr. Harrison told the elevator operator. As the elevator climbed, Kai's heart pounded faster. In a few minutes, he would meet Mrs. Liu and Xiaoming. Real people whose lives hung in the balance of a phone call he answered 3 days ago. "Mr. Harrison," Kai said as they reached the 3rd floor, "I need to know something before we go in." "There." "What?" How did Mrs. Liu really get the cafe's phone number? Mr. Harrison stopped walking. Other people in the hallway moved around them. Doctors, nurses, families carrying flowers, and hope. "What do you mean?" "You said you've been watching me for 3 months. You own my building. You know everything about my life." Kai's voice got stronger. "That phone call wasn't random, was it?" Mr. Harrison looked at Kai for a long moment. Then he smiled sadly. "You're smarter than I expected. So you planned it? You gave her the number?" "Yes." Kai felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. It was all fake? The crying grandmother? The dying boy? No, Kai. Mrs. Liu's tears were real. Xiaoming's sickness is real. The need for surgery is real. Mr. Harrison put a hand on Kai's shoulder. But the phone call wasn't an accident. Why? Kai's voice cracked. Why would you do that? Because I needed to see your heart one more time. I needed to know what you would do when faced with impossible need. This is sick, Kai said, backing away. "You're playing games with people's lives." "I'm trying to save lives," Mr. Harrison said firmly. "Starting with yours." "What does that mean?" Mr. Harrison pressed the elevator button. "Let's go meet Mrs. Liu. Then I'll explain everything." Room 304 was at the end of a long hallway. Through the small window in the door, Kai could see a tiny figure in a hospital bed. Machines beeped softly. An elderly woman sat in a chair beside the bed, holding the child's hand. "That's them," Mr. Harrison said gently. Kai's anger melted when he saw Mrs. Liu's face. Even through the window he could see her exhaustion, her hope mixed with despair, her love for the small boy who lay so still under white sheets. This wasn't fake. This was a grandmother watching her grandchild die. Mr. Harrison knocked softly and pushed the door open. "Mrs. Liu!" The elderly woman looked up with tired eyes. When she saw Kai, her face filled with confusion. "You're just a boy," she said in Mandarin. Kai knelt beside her chair. "I'm the one who answered your phone call." Mrs. Liu stared at him, then at Mr. Harrison, then back at Kai. "But you're so young. How could you help us?" "I couldn't," Kai admitted. "But he can." He pointed to Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison spoke to the doctor in rapid Chinese. Kai caught words like surgery and payment and immediately. The doctor looked surprised, then relieved, then grateful. Money changed hands. A lot of money. More money than Kai had ever seen in one place. "The surgery is scheduled for tomorrow morning," the doctor announced with a big smile. "Everything is paid for. Room, surgery, recovery, medicine, everything." Mrs. Liu collapsed into sobs. Happy sobs this time. She grabbed Kai's hands and squeezed them tight. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for answering my call. Thank you for caring about strangers." Kai looked down at the sleeping boy. Xiaoming was tiny and pale, but peaceful. His breathing was shallow but steady. On the bedside table sat a drawing of stick figures holding hands. "What does it say?" Mr. Harrison asked, pointing to the Chinese characters at the bottom. "Family, forever," Kai translated. Mrs. Liu wiped her eyes and smiled. "He drew it yesterday. He said even if he goes to heaven, we'll still be family." Kai's throat tightened. This 8-year-old boy was braver than most adults. "Can I talk to him?" Kai asked. "He sleeps a lot because of the medicine," Mrs. Liu explained. "But try. Sometimes he wakes up." Kai sat on the edge of the bed and gently touched Xiaoming's hand. "Hello, little brother." Xiaoming's eyes fluttered open. They were dark and curious, full of intelligence despite his sickness. "Are you the voice from the phone?" Xiaoming whispered. "Yes. You came all the way from America to see me?" "I came to make sure you get better." Xiaoming smiled, and for a moment the hospital room filled with light. "Will you visit me after my surgery?" "Every day until you're strong enough to go home." "Promise?" "Promise." Xiaoming closed his eyes and drifted back to sleep, still holding Kai's hand. That night, in their hotel room, Kai finally demanded the whole truth. "No more games," he said. "Who are you really? And why did you choose me?" Mr. Harrison sat on the balcony, looking out at Shanghai's sparkling skyline. The city lights reflected in his eyes like stars. "My real name is David Chen," he said quietly. "Chen, the same last name as Kai. And you, Kai Chen, are my nephew." Kai felt the world stop, spinning. "Your father was my younger brother, Li Chen. We came to America together 20 years ago with nothing but dreams and determination. Kai's father. His father who died in a car accident when Kai was 12. The car accident that killed your parents, David continued, his voice breaking. It wasn't an accident. Kai's world stopped spinning. He stared at David Chen, his uncle, trying to make sense of the words. What did you say? David pulled out a worn leather wallet and removed old photographs. His hands shook as he spread them on the hotel room table. This is your father, and me when we first came to America, David said, pointing to a picture of two young men standing in front of a tiny apartment building. We were 20 and 18 years old. We had $40 between us and a dream to change the world. Kai picked up the photo. His father looked exactly like Kai, but older. The same dark eyes, the same stubborn chin, the same gentle smile. Standing next to him was David, 20 years younger but unmistakably the same man. Li Chen was my little brother, David continued, his voice soft with memory. He was smarter than me, kinder than me, and braver than me. He always said we came to America to help people, not just to get rich. More photos. The two brothers working at a computer in a garage, eating noodles from paper containers, celebrating with champagne in business suits. We started a technology company in Seattle, David explained. Your father invented software that helped hospitals communicate better, faster. Doctors could save more lives because of his programs. Kai had never known his father was an inventor. His grandmother always said his parents worked hard, but never talked about what they did. The company grew fast. One year we were broke college dropouts. The next year we were millionaires. 5 years later, we were worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions, Kai whispered. Your father's software was used in hospitals all over the world. Every time a doctor saved a life faster because of better communication, your father said it proved we made the right choice coming to America. David stood up and walked to the window. Shanghai's lights twinkled below like fallen stars. But success changed us. Changed me, he admitted. I wanted to expand the company, make more money, buy bigger buildings. Your father wanted to help poor families get better health care. We fought constantly. Kai saw pain in his uncle's face, old pain that had been hiding for years. What happened the night they died? David closed his eyes. Your father called me. He wanted to meet, to talk about working together again instead of fighting. He said he had exciting news about you starting school in America. He was driving across the city to see me. But you didn't meet him. I was angry and stubborn. I refused to see him. David's voice cracked. I thought if I ignored him long enough, he would do things my way. Make money my way. Kai felt sick to his stomach. The storm was terrible that night. Rain and wind and lightning. Your father should have stayed home, but he wanted to fix our relationship before you moved to America. He wanted his big brother and his son to know each other. David turned back, to face Kai, tears in his eyes. If I had just answered his call, if I had agreed to meet him, if I hadn't been so selfish and proud. He took a shaky breath. Your father would never have been on that road during the storm. Your parents would still be alive. Kai stared at the photos scattered on the table. His father, young and hopeful. His uncle, young and ambitious. Brothers who loved each other, but forgot how to show it. You blame yourself, Kai said quietly. I killed my brother because I was too proud to forgive him, David whispered. That's not true. It is true. And your grandmother knew it. After the funeral, she took you and disappeared. Changed her name, moved to a different city, refused to let me find you. Grandma knew about you? She blamed me for her son's death. She was right to blame me. Kai's head spun with new information. His grandmother had lied to him for 5 years. His uncle had been searching for him. His father had been rich and famous. "I hired investigators to find you," David continued. "But your grandmother was smart. She created new identities, paid cash for everything, stayed invisible. She protected you from me. Why didn't she want us to meet? Because she thought I would. Corrupt you like success corrupted me. She wanted you to grow up with good values, not just money." David sat back down and pulled out more photos. "Recent ones. 2 years ago, I finally found you. Working at the cafe, going to school, sending money to your grandmother, living the life your father would have wanted you to live." The photos showed Kai at work, on the bus, walking to school. David had been watching him for years, not months. "I wanted to introduce myself immediately," David said. "But I needed to know what kind of person you had become. Your father always said character matters more than money. So you tested me. I needed to see if you inherited your father's good heart or my selfish nature." Kai looked at the pictures of himself helping customers, sharing food with homeless people, working extra shifts for sick co-workers. "Every day, you proved you were Li Chen's son," David said proudly. "Kind, generous, hardworking, everything your father hoped you would be." "What about the phone call from Mrs. Liu? That was real. She really needed help for Xiaoming. But I gave her the cafe number because I wanted to see what you would do when faced with impossible need." Kai understood now. "You wanted to know if I would care about strangers. Your father always said, the measure of a person is how they treat people who can't help them in return. And if I had failed your test?" David was quiet for a long moment. "Then I would have helped Xiaoming quietly and disappeared from your life forever. But I didn't fail. You exceeded every hope I had. You have your father's heart, Kai. His compassion, his courage, his desire to help others." Kai picked up a photo of his parents on their wedding day. They looked so young and happy, so full of dreams for their future son. "There's more, isn't there?" Kai asked. "Something else you're not telling me?" David nodded slowly. "The car accident. I discovered something last month. Something that changes everything." "What?" "It wasn't an accident caused by the storm." David's voice became hard with anger. "Someone cut your father's brake lines." Kai felt cold all over. "Murder?" "Your father had a business partner in China, a man named Wang. When your father refused to share our technology with him, Wang decided to take it by force." "By killing my father?" "Wang thought with Li dead, he could steal our patents and claim ownership of the software. He didn't know your father had already transferred everything to you." Kai couldn't breathe. "To me? On your 12th birthday, 3 months before he died, your father made you the legal owner of everything. The company, the patents, the money, all of it." "I own a technology company? You own one of the most successful technology companies in the world. You have been a billionaire since you were 12 years old." Kai stared at his uncle. "Billionaire?" "I've been managing your inheritance, growing the company in your name, protecting your money from people like Wang. Wang has been looking for me for 5 years. That's another reason your grandmother hid so well. She knew if Wang found you, he would try to steal your inheritance, or worse." David showed Kai security camera photos from Seattle. Strange men asking questions about Chinese teenagers, following delivery drivers, watching the cafe district. "They're getting close," David warned. "Wang's men have been in Seattle for 3 weeks. looking for a boy who matches your description." Kai's hands shook as he looked at the surveillance photos. Men in dark suits asking his neighbors questions, taking pictures of teenagers who looked Asian. "What do we do?" "We have two choices," David said. "Run and hide forever, or fight back." "What would my father do?" David smiled for the first time that night. He would choose to help people, even if it was dangerous, even if it cost him everything. Kai thought about Xiaoming sleeping in his hospital bed, about Mrs. Liu praying for her grandson's surgery, about his grandmother working night shifts to pay rent, about all the people in the world who needed help but had no one to call. "Uncle David," Kai said, his voice getting stronger, "I know what we're going to do with the money. But first, we need to stop Wang permanently." The next morning, Kai and David returned to the hospital early. Xiaoming was awake, drawing another picture while waiting for his surgery. "Gega!" the little boy called out when he saw Kai. "Big brother." Kai's heart filled with warmth. In one day, this brave child had become like family to him. "What are you drawing?" Kai asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. Xiaoming held up his artwork, two stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. One tall, one small. "That's you and me," Xiaoming explained proudly. "After I get better, we can play soccer together." "I'd like that very much," Kai said, his throat tight with emotion. Mrs. Liu squeezed Kai's hand. "He talks about you constantly. His American big brother who came to save him." The surgery took 6 hours. Kai and David waited in the family room with Mrs. Liu, who prayed quietly and knitted a small sweater. "For when he comes home," she explained when Kai asked about the sweater. "When he comes home, not if." Mrs. Liu had complete faith that her grandson would survive. Finally, the doctor emerged with a huge smile. "Perfect success. The repair went beautifully. Xiaoming will have a completely normal heart." Mrs. Liu collapsed into happy tears. David smiled proudly. But Kai felt something else, a deep understanding that this was just the beginning. Later, while Xiaoming slept peacefully in recovery, David took Kai across Shanghai to meet someone important. "Where are we going?" Kai asked as their car wound through busy streets. "To see a private investigator who's been helping me track Wang." The investigator's office was hidden above a noodle shop in an old part of the city. Mr. Wu was a thin man with sharp eyes and careful hands. His desk was covered with photographs, documents, and computer printouts. "Show him what you found," David said. Mr. Wu spread new evidence across his desk. Police reports, security camera footage, financial records, and witness statements. "Car accident 5 years ago," Mr. Wu began in Chinese. "The police never investigated deeply because it looked like weather-related death." He showed them photos of the crashed car. Kai's hands shook as he saw the twisted metal where his parents had died. But last month, an auto mechanic came forward. He was afraid to speak before, but his conscience finally won. Mr. Wu played a recording of an old man's voice speaking nervous Chinese. He says a man paid him to cut brake lines on a car matching your father's description. The man said it was a prank on a friend, but the mechanic knew it was dangerous. "Wang," David said quietly. The mechanic kept the money Wang paid him. "We tested it for fingerprints." Mr. Wu held up a lab report. "Perfect match for Wang Shengli." Kai stared at the evidence. After 5 years, they finally had proof that Wang murdered his parents. "There's more," Mr. Wu continued. "Wang has been stealing technology from other companies for years. We found victims in Japan, Korea, and America. At least 12 inventors. have died in accidents after refusing to sell to Wang. 12 people? Kai felt sick. Your father wasn't his first victim. Wang has built his fortune on murder and theft. David's face was hard with anger. And he's still hunting for Kai. Mr. Wu showed them recent surveillance photos from Seattle. Wang's men questioning people at the International District, following Asian teenagers, taking pictures outside Moonbeam Cafe. They know you work in that area, Mr. Wu explained. They're asking about a 17-year-old Chinese boy who sends money to China and speaks perfect Mandarin. How long before they find me? Kai asked. Days, maybe hours if you return to Seattle. Kai looked at the evidence spread across the desk. Photos of his parents' destroyed car, reports of other murdered inventors, pictures of Wang's men hunting for him in his neighborhood. We can't just hide forever, Kai said. And we can't let Wang keep killing people. What are you thinking? David asked. Wang wants our technology. Let's give him a chance to steal it. David and Mr. Wu exchanged glances. Explain, David said carefully. Wang thinks I don't know about him or the murder. Let's keep it that way. We set up a fake meeting where he can try to trick me into signing over the company. That's incredibly dangerous. But we'll be recording everything. Let him confess to murder while trying to steal from me. Then we call the police. Mr. Wu nodded slowly. Hidden cameras, multiple recording devices, police ready to move in. It could work. Or it could get you killed, David said firmly. Kai thought about Xiao Ming drawing pictures in his hospital bed, about Mrs. Lu's tears of gratitude, about his father's dream of using technology to help people. Dad wanted to help. Others, even when it was risky, Kai said. If we don't stop Wang, he'll keep murdering people and stealing their work. That afternoon, they put their plan into action. David made calls pretending to be a business advisor who had discovered Kai's inheritance. He leaked information to Wang's contacts, making it sound like Kai was naive and easily manipulated. Within hours, Wang took the bait. He wants to meet tomorrow night, David reported after hanging up from a tense phone conversation. Jin Mao Tower Restaurant. He's bringing lawyers and contracts. He's planning to trick me into signing everything over to him? Exactly. He thinks you're just a confused teenager who doesn't understand business. Mr. Wu spent the evening setting up surveillance equipment. Tiny cameras hidden in Kai's clothes. Recording devices in his watch and phone. Backup recordings in David's briefcase. Police will be positioned throughout the restaurant, Mr. Wu explained. The moment Wang threatens you or confesses to murder, they'll move in. That night, Kai visited Xiaoming one more time. The little boy was awake and feeling much better after his surgery. My heart feels strong now, Xiaoming said, placing Kai's hand on his chest. Feel how steady it beats? Kai felt the strong, regular heartbeat of a healthy child. Perfect. Are you going somewhere, Gege? You look worried. I have some business to take care of, but I'll be back tomorrow. Promise? Kai hesitated. Tomorrow night could go very wrong. Wang was a killer who had murdered at least 12 people. If their plan failed, promise, Kai said firmly. He wouldn't let fear stop him from doing the right thing. Xiaoming smiled and closed his eyes. I'll dream about playing soccer with you. As they left the hospital, David pulled Kai aside. It's not too late to change our minds. We could disappear tonight. New identities, new lives somewhere Wang can't find us. And let him keep killing. People? You're 17 years old, Kai. This shouldn't be your responsibility. Kai looked back at the hospital where Xiaoming slept peacefully, his heart finally strong and healthy. Dad was only 28 when he started the company to help people. Age doesn't matter when someone needs help. David smiled proudly. You really are Li Chen's son, and you're really his brother. Tomorrow night, we finish what he started. The next evening, as Kai dressed for the most dangerous meeting of his life, he thought about his father's last phone call to David. Li Chen had been driving through a storm to reunite with his brother, to fix their relationship, to work together, for good instead of fighting over money. He never made it to that meeting. But tomorrow night, his son would finish the conversation. And this time, Wang Shengli wouldn't escape justice. Kai stared at himself in the hotel mirror. He wore his best clothes, a dark suit David had bought him that morning. Hidden cameras were sewn into his jacket buttons. A recording device sat invisible in his watch. Backup microphones were tucked into his shirt collar. He looked like a serious businessman, but inside, he felt like a scared teenager about to face his parents. Killer. Remember, David said as he adjusted Kai's tie, Wang thinks you're naive. Play the part. Act confused about business. Let him think he's smarter than you. What if he gets suspicious? Then we abort the mission and get you out safely. David's hands were steady, but his eyes showed worry. Your safety is more important than catching Wang. Mr. Wu checked all the recording equipment one final time. Audio is perfect. Video is clear. Police are positioned throughout the restaurant and lobby. You'll never be alone with Wang. At 6:30 p.m., they arrived at Jin Mao Tower. The skyscraper stretched toward the clouds, its lights twinkling like stars. The restaurant on the 88th floor was one of Shanghai's most expensive, with views of the entire city. Wang likes to show off his wealth, David explained as they rode the elevator up. He thinks expensive places make him look more trustworthy. The elevator doors opened to reveal a restaurant that looked like a palace. Crystal chandeliers hung from golden ceilings. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed Shanghai's skyline stretching to the horizon. Waiters in perfect uniforms moved silently between tables where rich people ate food that cost more than most families earned in a month. Mr. Chen? A hostess in an elegant dress approached them. Mr. Wang is waiting for you. Kai's heart pounded as they followed her across the restaurant. At a corner table with the best view sat a man in his 50s. Wang Shengli was shorter than Kai expected, with silver hair and cold eyes behind expensive glasses. He wore a perfect suit and a watch that probably cost more than a house. But what struck Kai most was Wang's smile. It looked friendly, but his eyes remained calculating and cruel. Young Mr. Chen. Wang stood up and extended his hand. What an honor to finally meet Li Chen's son. Kai shook Wang's hand, fighting the urge to pull away. This man had murdered his parents, had killed 11 other innocent people, was smiling at him like an old friend. Thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Wang, Kai said, trying to sound nervous and uncertain. Please, call me Uncle Wang. Your father and I were very close business partners. Lies. All lies. But Kai played his part. Uncle David says you might be able to help me understand my inheritance, Kai said, glancing at David. It's all very confusing. Wang's eyes lit up with greed. Of course, my boy. Inheriting a technology company at your age must be overwhelming. They sat down at the elegant table. Wang had brought 2 other men, lawyers, he said, but they looked more like bodyguards. David sat beside Kai, playing the role of helpful advisor. I've taken the liberty of reviewing your father's company, Wang said, spreading documents across the table. Very complicated business structures, many legal problems that could cause you trouble. Problems? Kai asked, pretending to be worried. Oh yes, patent disputes, international regulations, tax complications. Wang shook his head sympathetically. These issues could cost you millions of dollars in legal fees. One of Wang's lawyers nodded seriously. Very dangerous for someone with no business experience. But don't worry, Wang said with his fake smile. I can solve all these problems for you. He pulled out a thick contract. This partnership agreement will protect you from all legal troubles. I'll handle the complicated business decisions. You'll receive a generous monthly allowance and can focus on your education. Kai pretended to read the contract, but the words were legal language designed to confuse him. David had explained that it was actually a document that would sign over complete control of the company to Wang. This seems very generous, Kai said innocently. But why would you help me? We barely know each other. Wang's smile became wider and more false. Because your father was like a brother to me. Before he died, he asked me to look after you if anything happened to him. More lies. Kai's father had never trusted Wang, had refused to work with him, had died trying to keep his technology away from this killer. My father talked to you before the accident? Kai asked. Oh yes, many times. He was very worried about leaving you such a complicated inheritance. Wang's voice became sad and caring. Poor Li. If only he had signed this partnership before his tragic accident. You mean his murder? The words slipped out before Kai could stop them. Wang's fake smile froze on his face. What did you say? Kai's heart raced. He had blown their cover. But looking at Wang's suddenly dangerous expression, he realized he couldn't pretend anymore. I said murder, because that's what you did to my parents. Wang's lawyers moved closer. The restaurant suddenly felt smaller and more dangerous. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Wang said carefully. Your parents died in a car accident after you cut their brake lines. Wang's face went completely cold. The fake kindness disappeared, replaced by the calculating cruelty of a killer. You know, Wang said quietly. Interesting. David tensed beside Kai, ready to signal the police. How long have you known? Wang asked. Long enough to gather evidence. Fingerprints on the money you paid the mechanic. Witness statements, security camera footage. Wang laughed, but it sounded like ice breaking. Evidence means nothing if no one lives to present it. His lawyers moved even closer. Other restaurant customers seemed far away. The elegant surroundings suddenly felt like a trap. Your father was stubborn too, Wang continued, his voice turning deadly. He refused a perfectly reasonable business partnership. Said his technology was meant to help people, not make money. So you killed him. I solved a problem. Your father's software was worth billions. He was too idealistic to use it properly. Wang leaned forward, his eyes now showing their true evil. I've built my fortune by taking what weak people won't use. 12 companies, 12 dead inventors, billions of dollars in stolen technology. He was confessing everything, but Kai realized with growing horror that Wang didn't care about being recorded. He planned to kill them tonight. The accident was supposed to look random, Wang continued. Bad weather, tragic loss, grieving family too devastated to ask questions, but then you and your uncle disappeared. You've been hunting us for 5 years, and now I've found you. The last loose thread in a very profitable tapestry. Wang signaled to his men. They reached inside their jackets. Sign the contract, boy, or join your parents tonight. Kai looked around the restaurant. Where were the police? Why weren't they moving in? David caught his eye and nodded slightly toward the kitchen. their escape route. "You made one mistake, Wang," Kai said, standing up slowly. "What's that?" "You assumed I was here alone." The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in. Bathing. The restaurant in red. Suddenly, police officers appeared from every direction. Behind pillars, from the kitchen, through the main entrance. Shanghai police. "Nobody move!" Wang's men reached for their weapons, but officers were already beside them, guns drawn. "Wang Shengli," the lead detective announced in Chinese, "you're under arrest for the murder of Li Chen, Susan Chen, and 11 other victims." Wang's face twisted with rage as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. "This isn't over, boy," he snarled at Kai. "I have people everywhere. You'll never be safe." "Maybe," Kai said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "But you'll never hurt anyone else." As police led Wang away, the restaurant erupted in chaos. Other customers screamed and pointed. News cameras appeared as if from nowhere. Reporters shouted questions. David pulled Kai toward the emergency exit. "We need to leave. Now!" But as they reached the stairwell, Kai turned back for one last look at Wang being dragged away in handcuffs. The man who murdered his parents was finally caught. Justice was finally served. But Wang's words echoed in Kai's mind. "I have people everywhere." Was this really over? Or just the beginning of a bigger fight? 3 hours later, they sat in Mr. Wu's office, watching news reports on every channel. The story was already international. Teenage billionaire catches parents' killer. "The recording is perfect," Mr. Wu reported. Wang confessed to 12 murders. His lawyers are already trying to make deals to avoid death sentences. "What happens now?" Kai asked. "Now you decide what to do with your life," David said. Wang is finished. His organization is being investigated by police in 6 countries. You're safe. Kai thought about Xiao Ming sleeping peacefully in his hospital bed. About Mrs. Liu knitting sweaters for her grandson's homecoming. About his father's dream of using technology to help people. "I want to start a foundation," Kai said. "The Li Chen Foundation will help families like Mrs. Liu, kids who need surgery, students who can't afford school, people who need a chance." David smiled proudly. "Your father would love that. But first, I want to visit Xiaoming. I promised I'd be back." As they drove through Shanghai's neon-lit streets toward the hospital, Kai's phone rang. The caller ID showed a Seattle number. "Hello?" Kai answered. "Kai! Oh my goodness, we saw you on the news." It was Zara from the cafe. "Are you really a billionaire? Did you really catch a murderer?" Kai laughed, the first real laugh he'd had in days. "It's a long story. Well, you better get back here soon. Mrs. Peterson wants to throw you a hero's party. And Sarah made you a thank you card. And about 50 customers have been asking when the famous billionaire barista is coming back to work." "I'll be back," Kai promised. "Seattle is my home." After hanging up, Kai realized something important. Money couldn't buy the relationships he'd built. Fame couldn't replace the simple joy of making coffee for people who had become like family. He was a billionaire. Now, he could live anywhere, do anything, buy everything. But what he wanted most was to go home to his tiny apartment, his job at Moonbeam Cafe, and his normal life helping people one cup of coffee at a time. Except now, he could help them in much bigger ways too. 3 months later, Kai stood outside Moonbeam Cafe, staring at the line of people wrapped around the block. News trucks were parked on the street. Reporters held microphones and cameras, waiting for the billionaire barista to return to work. "This is crazy," Kai muttered, pulling his baseball cap lower over his eyes. David laughed beside him. What did you expect? You're probably the most famous teenager in the world right now. Since Wang's arrest, Kai's story had spread everywhere. News channels called him the orphan who became a billionaire. Social media was full of posts about the cafe worker who caught a killer. 3 movie companies wanted to buy his life story, but all Kai wanted was to make coffee and see his friends. Ready? David asked. Kai took a deep breath and pushed open the cafe door. The crowd inside erupted in cheers and applause. Customers he recognized from months of serving coffee were clapping and whistling. Zara ran over and hugged him so tight he could barely breathe. "You're back!" she shouted over the noise. "I can't believe my co-worker is a billionaire." Mrs. Peterson, the elderly woman whose coffee Kai used to pay for, was sitting at her usual table with tears in her eyes. She held up a newspaper with Kai's photo on the front page. "I told everyone you were special," she called out. "I just knew you had a good heart." Sarah, the homeless woman Kai used to share his lunch with, stood near the counter, wearing clean clothes and a huge smile. "Kai, look!" She pointed to a small apartment key in her hand. "I got housing through your foundation's program." The Li Chen Foundation had launched 1 month after Wang's arrest. In just 60 days, they had paid for surgeries for 47 children, provided scholarships for 200 students, and helped 85 families find safe housing. But seeing Sarah's joy made all the paperwork and meetings worth it. "Tell me everything!" Zara demanded, pulling Kai behind the counter. "The news said you inherited billions of dollars, and your uncle has been secretly watching you, and you flew to China to save a little boy's life?" "It's a long story," Kai said, tying on his old apron. The familiar weight of it felt like coming home. "We have time?" said a voice from across the cafe. Kai looked up to see Mr. Harrison, David, sitting in his old corner booth. He was dressed in his usual expensive suit, but now Kai knew the truth about who he was and why he'd been watching. For the next hour, while making coffee and serving customers, Kai told his story. How the phone call from Mrs. Liu had started everything. How David had tested his character. How they'd discovered Wang had murdered his parents and 11 other inventors. The customers listened like it was the best movie they'd ever seen. "So, what's it like being rich?" asked Jake, a college student who came in every morning for cheap coffee and free Wi-Fi. "Weird," Kai admitted. "I can buy anything I want, but the things I want most can't be bought." "Like what?" Kai looked around the cafe at faces he'd come to know over months of work. Mrs. Peterson reading her romance novel. Jake studying for exams he couldn't really afford. Sarah organizing community volunteer schedules at a corner table. "Like this," Kai said simply. "Like having people who care about you because of who you are, not what you have." That afternoon, when the news crews finally left and the cafe returned to normal, Kai sat with David in the corner booth. "Any regrets?" David asked. "About catching Wang? Never. About the money? The responsibility? The loss of privacy?" Kai thought about it carefully. His life had changed completely in 3 months. He could never again walk down a street without being recognized. Every decision he made was analyzed by reporters. Every dollar he spent was scrutinized by people who thought they knew how a billionaire should behave. But then he thought about the thank you letters arriving at the foundation every day. Photos of children after successful surgeries. Graduation, pictures from scholarship recipients. Wedding invitations from couples who met while volunteering for foundation projects. "No regrets," Kai said firmly. "This is what Dad would have wanted." His phone buzzed with a text message. Kai smiled as he read it. Xiaoming? David asked. He starts school next week. Mrs. Liu says he tells everyone about his American big brother who saved his life. Kai showed David the attached photo. Xiaoi, Ming in a school uniform, grinning at the camera, holding a soccer ball. He looked healthy and strong and happy. We're flying back to Shanghai next month for his birthday party, Kai added. We? The foundation is opening a permanent children's hospital there. Xiaoming wants to break ground with me. David smiled proudly. Your father would be amazed at what you've accomplished. What we've accomplished. I couldn't have done any of this without you. That evening, Kai walked to his old apartment in the International District. He could afford any house in the world now, but he'd decided to keep his small place. It reminded him where he came from and why his work mattered. On his doorstep sat a package with no return address. Inside was a single photo. Kai walking to work that morning, taken from across the street with a telephoto lens. On the back, someone had written in Chinese, "Wang's friends remember." Kai felt cold despite the warm evening. Wang was in prison awaiting trial, but he'd been right about having people everywhere. His phone rang. David's number. Did you get a package? David asked immediately. A photo. Someone's still watching me. Pack. A bag. You're staying at my hotel tonight. Tomorrow we upgrade your security. David, I can't live in fear forever. You can live smart. Wang's organization is bigger than just him. Some of his partners are still free. That night, in David's secure hotel suite, Kai stared out at Seattle's skyline and made a decision. Want to go public? He told David. What do you mean? A press conference. Tell the whole world about Wang's organization, about the other inventors who were murdered, about his remaining partners who are still out there. That's incredibly dangerous. So is hiding. If we expose everything publicly, it becomes harder for them to hurt us quietly. David was quiet for a long moment. Your father took risks too. Help people too. And you said yourself, some things are worth the danger. 2 days later, they held the press conference at Seattle City Hall. Reporters from around the world attended. Kai stood at the podium, looking out at cameras and microphones, knowing that millions of people would hear his words. My name is Kai Chen, he began. 3 months ago, I was just a cafe worker who answered a phone call in Mandarin. Today, I want to tell you about a phone call that changed everything. For 30 minutes, Kai told the complete story. Wang's murder spree. Dadi stolen technology, the international network of criminals who killed inventors and stole their work. Wang Shengli is in prison, Kai continued, but his organization is still active. They've threatened me and my family. They probably always will. He paused, looking directly into the cameras. But I'm not going to hide. I'm going to use my inheritance the way my father intended, to help people. The Li Chen Foundation will continue growing. We'll help more children get surgery, more students get education, more families find safety. Kai's voice grew stronger. And we'll keep fighting people like Wang who think they can steal and kill and get away with it. Because some things are more important than safety. Some things are worth fighting for. After the press conference, David pulled Kai aside. You just painted a target on your back, he said. The target was already there. Now, at least the whole world is watching. That night, Kai's phone rang with a call from Shanghai. Mrs. Liu's number. Kai, Xiaoming's excited voice came through the phone. I saw you on television. You looked so brave and important. How are you feeling, little brother? Strong. I played soccer for 2 hours today. Grandma says I can run faster than the wind now. Kai smiled, feeling some of his tension fade away. This was why everything else was worth it. "Gegi," Xiaoming said more quietly, "are bad people trying to hurt you? Some bad people are angry about what I did. But don't worry about me. I'm not worried. You know why? Why? Because heroes always win in the end. And you're my hero." After hanging up, Kai looked out his hotel window at the city lights below. Each light represented a life, a family, a story. Some lights were bright and steady. Others flickered with uncertainty. His job was to help the flickering lights burn brighter. Whatever dangers lay ahead, whatever threats Wang's people might make, Kai knew he'd made the right choice. He was his father's son, and his father had taught him that helping others was always worth the risk. Tomorrow, he would go back to Moonbeam Cafe and make coffee for people who had become his family. He would answer phones and help customers and live as normally as possible. But he would also continue building the foundation, helping families around the world, and fighting against people who thought money was more important than human life. The phone call that started it all had been answered by a 17-year-old cafe worker who just wanted to help. Now, 3 months later, that same young man was ready to help the whole world. 6 months after the press conference, Kai stood on the stage at Shanghai Children's Hospital holding a golden shovel. Hundreds of people filled the ceremony area. Doctors, nurses, government officials, and families who had been helped by the Li Chen Foundation. But the person Kai was most excited to see stood right beside him. Xiaoming, now 9 years old and completely healthy, wore a hard hat that was too big for his head. His smile was so bright, it could power the whole city. "Are you ready to build our hospital, little brother?" Kai asked in Mandarin. "Ready!" Xiaoming shouted, making the crowd laugh. Together, they pushed their shovels into the ground, officially breaking ground for the Li Chen Children's Medical Center. Cameras flashed and people applauded. But Kai only had eyes for the little boy who had started this whole journey. After the ceremony, Kai found Mrs. Liu sitting in the shade, knitting another sweater. "For the winter," she explained when Kai asked. "Xiaoming grows so fast now that he's healthy. How are you doing, Grandma Liu?" Kai had started calling her grandma months ago, and she loved it. "Happy. So happy I sometimes think I'm dreaming." She patted the bench beside her. "Sit with an old woman for a moment." Kai sat down, watching Xiaoming play soccer with other children. His kicks were strong and accurate. His laughter rang across the hospital courtyard. "I have something to tell you," Mrs. Liu said quietly. "Something I've been afraid to say for months." "What is it?" Mrs. Liu pulled out an old photograph from her purse. It showed a young man in a business suit, standing next to a woman in a wedding dress. The man looked familiar, but Kai couldn't place him. "This is my son," Mrs. Liu said. "Xiaoming's father. He died in a car accident when Ming was 3 years old." Kai studied the photo more carefully. The man had kind eyes and a gentle smile. He looked like someone who would have been a good father. "I'm sorry for your loss," Kai said softly. His name was Chen Wei-ming. But before he married and had a son, his name was Chen Wei. Kai's heart stopped. Chen was his last name too. In China, many people had the same surname, but something about Mrs. Liu's expression made him pay closer attention. "Chen Wei was my maiden name too before I married," Mrs. Liu continued. "My son took his father's family name when he was born, but he was a Chen by blood." "Mrs. Liu, what are you trying to tell me?" She pulled out another photograph. This one was older, showing a group of young people at what looked like a graduation ceremony. Kai recognized one face immediately. His father, Li Chen, looking barely 20 years old, standing next to his father, with an arm around his shoulders, was the same man from the wedding photo. "Your father and my son were cousins," Mrs. Liu said gently. "Li Chen and Chen Wei. They grew up together in Beijing before Li moved to America." Kai stared at the photograph, his mind spinning. "Cousins? Which means you and Xiaoming are family too. Second cousins, I think the English term is." The photograph trembled in Kai's hands. All this time, he thought he was helping strangers, but Mrs. Liu and Xiaoming were his family. "Did you know?" Kai asked. "When you called the cafe, did you know who I was?" Mrs. Liu shook her head. "Not then. I was desperate, and calling any number I could find. But when you came to Shanghai, and I saw your face, I recognized your father's eyes, your father's smile. Why didn't you say anything sooner?" "Because I wanted you to help us. Because you cared. Not because we were related. I wanted to know if you had inherited Li Chen's good heart." She smiled through tears. "You have, my grandson. You have your father's beautiful soul." Kai felt overwhelmed. In the space of 6 months, he had discovered he had an uncle who had been watching over him, and now a great-aunt and second cousin who needed his help. "Does Xiaoming know?" "Not yet. I wanted to tell you first." Kai looked across the courtyard, where Xiaoming was teaching other children how to kick a soccer ball. The little boy caught Kai watching and waved enthusiastically. "Gege, come play with us." "Should we tell him?" Kai asked Mrs. Liu. "What do you think?" Kai thought about all the drawings Xiaoming had made over the months. Pictures of 2 stick figures labeled Gege and Ming. Pictures of families under rainbows. Pictures of people holding hands with words like "Forever Family," written in careful Chinese characters. Maybe Xiaoming's heart had known the truth all along. "Ming!" Kai called out. "Come here! Grandma Liu has something special to tell you." Xiaoming ran over, his face flushed with happiness from playing. He still wore the oversized hard hat from the ceremony. "What is it? Is it a surprise?" Mrs. Liu pulled Xiaoming onto her lap, even though he was getting too big for it. "Do you remember the stories I told you about your father's family? About his cousin Li who moved to America? The one who became successful and helped people?" "Yes. Well, it turns out that Li Chen was Kai's father." Xiaoming looked confused for a moment. Then understanding dawned on his face. "Kai is my real family? Not just my American big brother, but my real cousin?" "Yes, sweetheart." Xiaoming stared at Kai with wide eyes. Then he launched himself into Kai's arms, hugging him so tight Kai could barely breathe. "I knew it!" Xiaoming shouted. "I knew we were real family. My heart told me." Kai hugged his little cousin back, feeling like all the pieces of his life were finally falling into place. That evening, the 3 generations of family sat together in Mrs. Liu's small apartment. She had cooked enough food for 10 people, insisting that family reunions required celebration. "Tell me about my father," Kai said as they ate. "What was he like when he was young?" Mrs. Liu's eyes lit up. "Oh, Li was always the dreamer. He and Wei would spend hours talking about how to make the world better. Li wanted to use technology to help people. Wei wanted to become a doctor. Did Wei become a doctor? He was studying medicine when he met Xiaoming's mother. They fell in love, got married, had their beautiful son. Mrs. Liu's voice became sad. He died in a car accident just before finishing medical school. Another car accident. Another family member lost too young. But Wei's dream lives on in Xiaoming. Mrs. Liu continued, smiling at her grandson. Ming wants to be a doctor too, just like his father planned. Xiaoming nodded seriously. I want to help sick children like the doctors helped me. And like you helped me, Gege. You'll be an amazing doctor, Kai said. Will you help me study and pay for medical school? I promise to work very hard. Kai laughed. Of course. That's what family does for each other. Later that night, after Xiao, Ming had fallen asleep between them on the couch. Mrs. Liu showed Kai more family photographs. Pictures of his father and Wei as children, playing in the same courtyard where Xiaoming now played. Pictures of family celebrations and holidays. Li wrote to us sometimes from America, Mrs. Liu said. He talked about his son constantly. How proud he was, how much he loved you, how he dreamed of bringing you back to China to meet your extended family. He wanted me to meet you? Oh, yes. He had plans to visit with you the summer after you turned 13. He wanted you to know your roots, your Chinese family. The summer after Kai turned 13. That would have been just months after his parents died. He never got the chance, Kai said quietly. But you're here now, and Xiaoming gets to grow up knowing his American cousin. Li's dream came true, just 5 years later than planned. Kai looked at his sleeping cousin. Xiaoming held one of his drawings in his small fists, a picture of 3 people under a rainbow, labeled Grandma, Ming, and Gege Kai. For months, Kai had thought he was helping strangers because it was the I way, right thing to do. Now he understood that sometimes the universe has bigger plans than we can see. Mrs. Liu, Kai said softly, there's something I want to ask you. What is it, grandson? Would you and Xiaoming like to visit America? I'd love to show you Seattle, introduce you to my friends at the cafe. David would love to meet you both. Mrs. Liu's eyes filled with tears. We would love that more than anything. And Ming, when he's older and ready for university, maybe he could study in America. I know some good medical schools. Li Chen's son, helping Wei's son become a doctor, Mrs. Liu whispered. The cousins' dreams finally connecting across time and distance. As Kai drifted off to sleep on Mrs. Liu's couch with his little cousin, curled up beside him, he thought about the phone call that had started everything. Mrs. Liu had called the cafe looking for help for her dying grandson. She thought she was calling strangers. But family had been calling family all along. Love had been reaching across an ocean to find love. Dreams had been seeking other dreams. Sometimes miracles look like accidents. Sometimes the most important. Phone calls are the ones that seem random. And sometimes the family you're meant to find is the family that needs you most. 5 years have passed since that first phone call changed everything. Dr. Kai Chen, now 22, and fresh from graduating medical school at the top of his class, stands at the podium of Seattle Convention Center. Below him sit 2,000 people who have gathered for the Li Chen Foundation's annual gala. The foundation has grown beyond anything Kai could have imagined. They now operate in 50 countries, have funded surgeries for over 10,000 children, provided scholarships to 25,000 students, and helped more than 100,000 families escape poverty. But tonight, Kai only has eyes for the people sitting in the front row. Mrs. Liu, now 80 but still sharp and energetic, wears a beautiful silk dress and beams with pride. Beside her sits Xiaoming, no longer little Ming, but a tall, confident 14-year-old who speaks perfect English and dreams of following in Kai's footsteps to become a doctor. David sits with his wife, Dr. Sarah Martinez, whom he married 2 years ago. Sarah runs the foundation's medical programs and shares David's passion for helping families in need. And scattered throughout the audience are faces that represent the journey. Zara from Moonbeam Cafe, now the Foundation's Seattle coordinator. Mrs. Peterson, 94 years old and still volunteering every week. Sarah, the former homeless woman who now manages 3 affordable housing projects. 5 years ago, Kai begins, his voice carrying clearly through the packed auditorium. I was just a cafe worker making $8 an hour. I answered a phone call in Mandarin because I felt sorry for a crying grandmother. I had no idea. That single moment of compassion would change my entire life. The audience listens intently. Many have heard this story before, but it never gets old. What I've learned since then is that we're all more connected than we realize. The stranger asking for help might be family you haven't met yet. The small act of kindness you do today might save someone's life tomorrow. Kai pauses, looking directly at Mrs. Liu and Xiaoming. Mrs. Liu called our cafe that day because she was desperate to save her grandson's life. She thought she was calling strangers, but family was calling family across 7,000 miles. Love was reaching out to find love. He clicks a remote, and the screen behind him shows a photo of the Shanghai Children's Hospital that now bears his father's name. It's bustling with activity. Doctors treating patients, children playing in the garden, families receiving the care they need. The Li Chen Medical Center has performed over 3,000 heart surgeries in 3 years. Every child who walks out of that hospital healthy carries a piece of Xiaoming's miracle with them. The audience applauds, but Kai raises his hand to continue. But tonight isn't just about celebrating what we've accomplished. It's about looking forward to what we'll do next. The screen changes to show architectural plans for new projects around the world. Next year, we'll break ground on Li Chen Medical Centers in Kenya, Guatemala, and the Philippines. We're launching a new program to train doctors in rural areas, and we're creating mobile clinics that will bring medical care to families who can't reach hospitals. More applause, but Kai's voice becomes more personal. The most important lesson I've learned is that true wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in lives touched, families reunited, and dreams made possible. He gestures toward the audience. Look around you. The person sitting next to you might have been helped by this foundation. The doctor who saved your child's life might have attended medical school on one of our scholarships. The teacher who changed your life might be working in a school we built. Kai's voice grows stronger. We're all part of the same human family. When one of us succeeds, we all succeed. When one of us suffers, we all have a responsibility to help. The presentation ends with a video montage. Children running and playing after successful surgeries, students graduating from universities, families moving into safe homes, communities coming together to help their neighbors. But the most powerful moment comes when 14-year-old Xiaoming takes the stage. He's grown tall and confident, but he still has the same bright smile that melted Kai's heart 5 years ago. He speaks in clear English, though his accent still carries traces of Shanghai. My name is Ming Chen, he begins. 5 years ago, I was dying in a hospital bed. My grandmother made a desperate phone call to a cafe in Seattle, hoping for a miracle. He looks directly at Kai, with eyes full of love and gratitude. My big brother. Kai flew 7,000 miles to save my life. But he didn't just save me. He showed me what it means to live with purpose. Ming pulls out a piece of paper, one of his old drawings, now framed and carefully preserved. This is a picture I drew when I was 8 years old. 2 stick figures holding hands. I wrote, "Forever Family," at the bottom because somehow, even as a sick child, I knew Kai and I were connected by something bigger than distance or circumstances. He holds up the drawing for everyone to see. Today, I'm healthy and strong. I'm studying hard so I can become a doctor like my big brother. And someday, I want to answer phone calls from desperate families and tell them, don't worry, help is coming. The audience gives Ming a standing ovation that lasts 5 minutes. After the gala, the extended family gathers at Moonbeam Cafe for a private celebration. The cafe hasn't changed much. Same old coffee machine, same worn tables, same warm atmosphere. But now photos cover the walls, showing all the families the foundation has helped. Mrs. Liu sits in David's old corner booth, knitting a sweater for her newest great-grandchild, David and Sarah's 6-month-old daughter, Lee, named after Kai's father. 5 years, she muses, as Kai brings her tea. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime. Any regrets about that phone call? Kai asks, settling beside her. Mrs. Liu laughs. Only that I was too scared to make it sooner. Imagine how much good we could have done with an extra few months. Ming joins them, carrying his laptop, where he's been working on a school project about family history. Gege, look what I made, he says, turning the screen toward Kai. It's a family tree, carefully researched and beautifully designed. At the top are their great-grandparents. Below them, 2 branches, one leading to Li Chen and Kai, the other to Chen Wei and Ming. See how our families separated when Grandpa Li moved to America? But look at the bottom. At the base of the tree, Ming has drawn new connections, lines showing how the Li Chen Foundation has created an extended family of thousands of people around the world. We're not just cousins anymore, Ming explains. We're part of a family that includes everyone we've helped. Everyone who has helped us. Everyone who believes that strangers are just family we haven't met yet. David approaches their table, carrying baby Lee. The infant reaches toward Kai with tiny fingers, gurgling happily. She knows her Uncle Kai, Sarah says, joining them. You should see how she lights up when we show her your picture. Kai takes his niece gently, amazed by how light and perfect she feels in his arms. Li Chen Martinez Chen, a name that honors the past while embracing the future. What kind of world are we building for her? Kai wonders aloud. A better one, Mrs. Liu says firmly. A world where phone calls get answered, where families find each other, where no child dies because their grandmother can't afford medical care. As if summoned by their conversation, the cafe phone rings. Zara moves to answer it, but Kai holds up his hand. I'll get it. He walks to the counter, baby Lee still in his arms, and picks up the familiar receiver. Moonbeam Cafe. How can I help? You! The voice on the other end speaks in accented English. A young woman, crying, desperate. Please, she says. I know this sounds crazy, but my friend told me to call this number. My little brother needs surgery, and we have no money. I heard about a foundation that helps families like ours. Can you help us? Please, I don't know who else to call. Kai looks around the cafe at his chosen family. Mrs. Liu nodding encouragingly. Ming pulling out his phone to take notes. David and Sarah ready to mobilize resources. Zara clearing a table where they can spread out paperwork. What's your name? Kai asks gently. Maria. I'm calling from Guatemala City. Tell me about your brother, Maria. What's his name? How old is he? What kind of surgery does he need? For the next 20 minutes, Kai listens to another story of love and desperation. Another family facing impossible circumstances. Another phone call that could change everything, When he hangs up, the cafe is quiet. "Well," Mrs. Liu asks, "7-year-old boy, heart defect. Family has been saving money for 3 years, but still needs $50,000 more. When do we leave?" Ming asks, already pulling up flight schedules on his laptop. Kai laughs, remembering another teenager who asked the same question 5 years ago when faced with his first impossible phone call. "Tomorrow morning. But Ming, you have school." It's spring break, and this is more important than any textbook. David nods approvingly. "I'll call our Guatemala team. They can have everything ready by the time we arrive." "I'll arrange the surgical team," Sarah adds. "And I'll pack extra yarn," Mrs. Liu says with a smile. Guatemala gets cold at night. The family will need warm sweaters. As they make plans around the cafe table, baby Lee sleeps peacefully in Kai's arms. The newest member of their ever-growing family, destined to grow up in a world where phone calls from desperate strangers are answered with love instead of indifference. Outside the cafe windows, Seattle's lights twinkle like stars. Each light represents a life, a family, a story waiting to unfold. Somewhere in Guatemala, a young woman named Maria is probably staring at her own city lights, praying that her desperate phone call to a cafe in Seattle will somehow save her little brother's life. She doesn't know it yet, but her prayer has already been answered. Because 5 years ago, a 17-year-old cafe worker learned that the most important calls are the ones that seem impossible to answer. And now, Dr. Kai Chen and his remarkable family are ready to answer them all. The phone call that changed everything was just the beginning. The real story is what happens next, one answered call at a time. What an incredible journey we've taken together. From a simple phone call in Mandarin to building a worldwide foundation that helps thousands of families. Kai's story shows us that kindness really can change the world. Just like Kai answered that desperate call from Mrs. Liu, we can all answer the call to help others in our daily lives. Sometimes the smallest acts of compassion create the biggest miracles. I'd love to know, where are you listening from right now? Drop a comment below and tell me your city or country. It's amazing how this story of connection brings people together from all around the world. If Kai's story touched your heart like it touched mine, please hit that like button to help spread this message of kindness to more people. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We share inspiring stories like this every week that remind us why helping others matters. There's another incredible story appearing on your screen right now about someone who changed lives in the most unexpected way. Click on it, and let's continue spreading kindness together. Remember, you never know when your next phone call, your next conversation, or your next act of kindness might change someone's entire world. Until next time, keep answering the call to help others. You might just discover that the family you're meant to find is the family that needs you most. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next story.